Hey guys, tonight we begin with the quiet, slow, and mildly detailed world of medieval beauty standards. A world where people cared about faces, hair, clothing, skin, and small personal details in a way that was probably very important to them at the time, but may feel pleasantly unimportant to us now. So before you get comfortable, you can slowly adjust your pillow, relax your shoulders, and allow the room around you to become a little softer. There is no need to concentrate too hard. This story does not require much attention. It is simply going to move from one small detail to another, in a calm and steady way. In the medieval world, pale skin was often admired. Not because it was exciting, not because it was dramatic, but because pale skin suggested that a person did not spend much time working outside. And in a society where many people worked in fields, under the sun, with soil, tools, animals, and weather, not working outside could be seen as a sign of wealth. So, pale skin became fashionable. Very pale skin. Quiet pale skin. The kind of pale skin that suggested someone had spent most of the day indoors, away from sunlight, away from heavy work, and possibly near a small window, thinking about nothing in particular. This was not always natural, of course. People used powders and mixtures to make their faces lighter. Some used white lead powder, which created a pale appearance but was also harmful. At the time, people did not understand health and chemicals in the same way we do now, so they often used whatever seemed to work. The powder made the face look smooth. The powder made the face look light. The powder made the face look fashionable. And slowly, quietly, and unfortunately, it could also damage the skin. But for many people, appearance mattered. Status mattered. Being seen in the correct way mattered. And so the pale face remained a goal. A calm, white, still, almost expressionless face. In paintings from the period, faces often look smooth and quiet. The people do not smile very much. They do not appear rushed. They simply look outward with soft eyes, pale skin, and the kind of expression that suggests they have been sitting still for a long time. And perhaps they had. Another important feature was the forehead. The forehead was not just a forehead. It was a fashionable area of the face. A high forehead was considered elegant, refined, and noble. This meant that some women removed hair from the front of the head to make the forehead look larger. They plucked. They shaved. They adjusted the hairline. They created more space above the eyes. And the result was a long, smooth forehead that would have seemed graceful at the time. Today it may look unusual. But in that period it was admired. The forehead was meant to be clear. The eyebrows were sometimes removed as well. Not always. Not everywhere. But often enough that the smooth, browless look became associated with medieval noble beauty. Eyebrows, which today are shaped, filled, brushed, darkened, lifted, laminated, and discussed at great length, were sometimes treated as unnecessary interruptions. A clean forehead was preferred. A pale face was preferred. A soft expression was preferred. The ideal face was not loud. It was not energetic. It was not full of movement. It was quiet, still, composed, almost sleepy. Hair was another important part of medieval beauty. Blonde hair was especially admired in many parts of Europe. It was associated with youth, purity, brightness, and beauty. People who did not naturally have blonde hair sometimes tried to lighten it. They used herbs. They used sunlight. They used mixtures that may or may not have smelled pleasant. Some recipes included chamomile, saffron, honey, ash, or other materials that people believed could make the hair lighter. The process was slow. Very slow. Hair does not usually change quickly. Takes time. A person might sit in the sun and wait. The hair might become slightly lighter. Or it might not. Either way, the waiting itself was part of the process. Long hair was often admired, especially for unmarried women. Loose hair could suggest youth and purity, while braided hair could suggest order and modesty. But married women were often expected to cover their hair. They wore veils. They wore caps. They wore wimples. They wore cloth around the head and neck. Layer after layer. Fold after fold. Pin after pin. The hair was there, but it was hidden. And hidden hair could be seen as proper. A woman's head covering could be simple, or it could be elaborate. Some were plain linen. Some were decorated. Some were structured into shapes that seem strange now but were fashionable then. The hennin, for example, was a tall cone-shaped headdress worn by noble women in parts of medieval Europe. It rose upward from the head, sometimes quite high. A veil could hang from the top. The effect was dramatic, but also very slow-looking, like a tower made for a person who intended to walk carefully through a doorway. It was not practical. But fashion is often not practical. The hennin showed status. It showed wealth. It showed that the wearer did not need to run, bend, lift, or hurry. And that was part of the point. Clothing also shaped the body into the preferred form. The ideal body was often soft, slim, delicate, and graceful. Not too strong. Not too broad. Not too muscular. A noble woman was expected to look as though she did not carry heavy things, did not work in the sun, and did not spend the day chasing animals through mud. The clothing helped create this image. Long dresses, high waists, soft folds, covered arms, covered hair, careful posture. Everything worked together to suggest refinement. The body was not meant to look busy. It was meant to look controlled. The face was pale. The forehead was high. The hair was arranged or covered. The clothing was long. The movement was limited. And the overall impression was quiet dignity. Or at least that was the idea. Makeup existed, but it was complicated. A little color on the cheeks could be admired. Too much color could be criticized. A subtle blush suggested youth and health. A strong blush might suggest vanity. So the ideal was balance. A small amount of red. Not too much. A soft cheek. Not a painted cheek. Some people use beetroot, berries, red pigments, or other mixtures to create color. The application was probably simple. A cloth, finger, a small dab, a careful look in a polished metal mirror, if one was available. Mirrors were not like modern mirrors. They were not bright and perfect. So applying makeup may have involved some guesswork. A little red here, a little powder there, then perhaps enough, or perhaps too much. No one could be completely sure. Teeth and breath were also part of appearance, although people did not speak about them in quite the same polished way. Fresh breath was desirable. Clean teeth were desirable. But medieval dental care was limited. People used herbs. They chewed fennel. They chewed parsley. They used cloth, salt, sage, or small sticks to clean the mouth. It was not perfect. It was simply what they had. A person might have pleasant breath for a short while after chewing herbs. Then ordinary life would return. Bread, ale, garlic, onions, smoke, long rooms, closed windows. And so, medieval beauty was not only about looking good. It was also about managing the ordinary difficulties of daily life. Scent mattered too. People used herbs, flowers, oils, and scented objects to improve the smell of clothing and rooms. A small pomander could hold spices or dried herbs. Clothes could be stored with lavender or rosemary. Hands could be washed with scented water. Hair could be treated with floral mixtures. None of this made the world perfectly fresh. But it helped. A little. And sometimes a little was enough. Medieval beauty was also connected to morality. This made everything more complicated. Beauty could be seen as a sign of goodness. But caring too much about beauty could be seen as vanity. A person was supposed to look graceful but not proud. Attractive but not tempting. Well-dressed but not excessive. Healthy but not earthy. Pale but not sick. Soft but not weak. Modest but not invisible. It was a difficult balance. And perhaps that is why so many medieval portraits look calm and slightly tired. Everyone was trying to follow too many rules at once. So, when we look back at medieval beauty standards, we see more than fashion. We see class, religion, labor, gender, health, symbolism, and a very large amount of patience. People plucked their hair, covered their heads, powdered their faces, lightened their hair, chewed herbs, adjusted veils, sat still for portraits, and tried to appear exactly as society expected them to appear. Quiet, pale, orderly, refined, and perhaps just a little uncomfortable. And now, as the room becomes quieter, we can leave them there. Sitting near a window, wearing linen, with a pale face, a high forehead, a covered head, a folded sleeve, a small cup nearby, and a day moving slowly outside. Nothing much happens. The powder remains on the face. The veil remains in place. The road outside remains dusty. The candle burns lower. The room becomes dimmer. And the medieval world, with all its rules about beauty, status, modesty, and appearance, becomes softer and softer in the distance, until it is only a quiet image. A pale face, a covered head, a still room, a low candle, and silence.